The psychology of people who never ask for help. Have you ever known one of them? They are the pillars of our world, the silent, load-bearing walls of our families, our workplaces, and our communities. They are the person who can handle anything, the one who never complains, the one who, in the midst of a raging crisis, is a preternatural island of calm, competence, and absolute, unshakable self-reliance. They are the friend who will drop everything at 3 a.m. to help you fix your broken-down car, but whose own car seems to be forged from indestructible steel. They are the colleague who will stay late to help you finish your project, but who seems to complete their own with an effortless and almost inhuman perfection. They are the rock, the anchor, the one you can always, and without question, depend on. You have likely looked at this person with a sense of profound and often envious admiration. You see their strength, their independence, their seemingly infinite capacity to endure, and you see it as a virtue, as a sign of a powerful and well put together character. You see them as a kind of modern-day Atlas, holding up their world with a quiet, stoic, and deeply admirable grace. You wish you could be more like them, but what if you are wrong? What if the fortress you are admiring is, in fact, a prison? What if the strength you are envying is not a strength at all, but a profound and terrifying symptom of a deep and ancient wound? What if the person who never asks for help is not a hero, but a ghost, a person who has been forced to erase the most fundamental and essential parts of their own humanity in order to survive? The brutal and uncomfortable truth is that the person who never asks for help is not a pillar of strength. They are a person in a state of profound and perpetual terror. Their self-reliance is not a choice, it is a cage, and their refusal to ask for help is not a sign of their power. It is the most heartbreaking and eloquent expression of their deepest and most secret pain. The primal wound, the crime of having a need. To understand the psychology of the person who never asks for help, you must first understand the sacred and non-negotiable architecture of a healthy human psyche. A human being is not an island. We are born into a state of absolute and total dependence, and we are designed from our very cellular structure to exist in a state of dynamic and life-giving interdependence. To have a need, and to express that need to another, is not a sign of weakness. It is the very mechanism through which connection, through which love, through which community is born. The act of asking for help is the most fundamental and most courageous act of a healthy and integrated human being. The person who cannot perform this act is a person whose fundamental mechanism has been broken, and it was broken at the very beginning of their life. This is the child who grew up in an environment where to have a need was not just an inconvenience, it was a crime. This may have been an environment of overt hostility. The child who expressed a need for comfort, for help, for attention, was met with anger, with ridicule, with punishment. They were told to stop crying, to toughen up, to deal with it themselves. They learned, with the brutal and unforgettable clarity of a traumatic lesson, that their needs were a source of danger, that their vulnerability was a trigger for the wrath of the very people who were supposed to be their source of safety. Or, and perhaps even more devastatingly, it may have been an environment of profound and terrible silence. This is the child of the narcissistic, the depressed, the addicted, the emotionally absent parent. This is the child who cried out with a need and was met not with anger, but with a void, a blank stare, an indifferent gaze, an emotional emptiness that was, in its own quiet way, a form of annihilation. They learned a lesson that was in many ways even more profound than that of the abused child. My needs are not just dangerous, they are irrelevant, they do not exist, I do not exist. In both of these scenarios, the child, in a brilliant and desperate act of psychological survival, makes a vow. It is a silent, unconscious, and life-defining vow. I will never need anyone again. They take the entire, beautiful, and essential apparatus of their own human neediness, their vulnerability, their longing for connection, their capacity to receive, and they lock it away in the deepest, darkest, and most inaccessible dungeon of their own psyche. This is the birth of the pathological self-reliant. They become an expert at anticipating their own needs and meeting them in a state of fierce and solitary isolation. They become their own parent, their own comforter, their own God. This is not a choice, it is a necessity. It is the only way to survive in a world that has taught them that to be human is to be a criminal. The architecture of the fortress, the psychology of the pseudo-adult. As this child grows into an adult, this early survival strategy solidifies into a rigid and deeply entrenched psychological structure. Their inner world is not that of a normal adult. It is a fortress, a meticulously managed garrison built on a foundation of profound and terrifying anxiety. To understand their behavior, you must understand the core tenets of their internal operating system, the unconscious laws that govern their every move. The first and most fundamental tenet is a pathological and global sense of responsibility. The person who never asks for help is a person who feels unconsciously responsible for everything and everyone. They walk into a room and instantly scan it for problems to solve, for people to fix, for emotional fires to put out, for potential chaos to manage. Their nervous system is permanently set to threat detection. Their relationships are almost always a tragic reenactment of their childhood role. They are drawn, with the magnetic pull of an unhealed wound, to projects, to needy, chaotic, or emotionally unavailable partners and friends. They are drawn to the familiar dynamic of being the capable one, the one who gives more than they receive. To be in a relationship where they are not needed, where they are asked simply to be and to receive, is a source of profound and terrifying anxiety. It feels unnatural, undeserved, and deeply unsafe. The second tenet is a compulsive and suffocating need for control. Having grown up in an environment that was unpredictable and unsafe, where their own needs were a source of chaos, they have learned that the only way to survive is to control everything. They micromanage their lives, their careers, their finances, their emotions, and the emotions of those around them. Spontaneity is the enemy. Vulnerability is a catastrophic failure of the system. They live in their heads in a world of lists, plans, and contingency strategies for disasters that have not yet happened. Their mind is a tireless sentinel, a sleepless warden, constantly scanning the horizon for potential threats. This gives them their characteristic competence and their ability to succeed in the external world. But it comes at a terrible price. They are completely cut off from the wisdom of their body, from the flow of their intuition, from the joyful, surrendered chaos of life itself. The third and most poignant tenet is the profound and deeply ingrained inability to receive. Because their own needs were the source of their original wound, they have learned to see the act of receiving as the ultimate form of danger, to ask for help, to admit a need, to show a vulnerability. These feel on a deep, unconscious level like a matter of life and death. They are the person who will give you the shirt off their back, but who will never admit that they are cold. They are a one-way street of caregiving. This creates a profound and tragic loneliness. They are often surrounded by people, but they are an island, separated by a moat of their own competence. No one is ever allowed to get close enough to see the cracks in their armor, to touch the deeply buried, starving child who is desperate for the very care and comfort they so freely give to others. To receive would be to surrender control, to admit that they are not a rock, and for the person who was taught that their survival depended on being a rock, that surrender feels like annihilation. The shadow of the rock. The inevitable return of the repressed need. The psyche, however, has a way of seeking wholeness. It is a self-regulating system that will not tolerate a state of profound imbalance forever. The needy, vulnerable child that you have buried alive does not die. It goes into the shadow, the unconscious basement of your mind, and from there, it wages a silent and often devastating war against the competent, hyper-independent adult you have become. The more you identify with your strong, self-reliant persona, the more powerful, chaotic, and infantile your repressed needs become. This is the source of the baffling and deeply shameful self-sabotage that so often plagues the life of the person who never asks for help. You see it in the hyper-competent CEO who has a secret drinking problem. You see it in the selfless, caregiving nurse who is in a deeply codependent and destructive romantic relationship. You see it in the disciplined, stoic individual who suddenly collapses into a profound and debilitating depression or a mysterious, chronic illness. These are not character flaws. These are not signs of weakness. They are acts of rebellion by the exiled inner child, desperate and violent attempts to shatter the prison of the persona. The inner child, starved of its natural right to be held, to be comforted, to be dependent, will erupt from the shadow in distorted and destructive ways. The addiction is a desperate, clumsy attempt to self-soothe, to find a chemical substitute for the comfort that was never given. The codependent relationship is a tragic and unconscious attempt to finally find the all-giving parent they never had, often by choosing a partner who is just as needy as they secretly are. The sudden collapse into depression or illness is the psyche's ultimate and most desperate strategy. It is the act of shutting down the entire system, the only way to finally force the person who can never ask for help to be in a state where they are, finally, utterly and completely helpless. Your self-sabotaging behaviors are not the problem. They are the symptom. They are the desperate, coded messages from a part of your soul that you have tried to murder, a part that is screaming in the only language it has left that it is refusing to stay dead. The fortress of your self-reliance has not kept you safe. It has simply ensured that when the enemy finally breaks through, the enemy is you. The path of the surrender, the courage to be human. How does this person ever find their way back to wholeness? The path of healing, for the person who never asks for help, is a long, arduous, and profoundly counterintuitive journey. It is not about becoming stronger, more disciplined, or more healed. In fact, it is the exact opposite. It is the sacred and terrifying work of learning to be weak, to be vulnerable, to be needy, and to finally, for the first time, allow the buried child to come out into the light. This is the sacred process of learning to surrender. The first step on this path is a radical and compassionate acknowledgement of the wound. You must be willing to look back at your own childhood, not with the adult's rationalizing, defending mind. It wasn't that bad. My parents did their best. It made me strong. But with the child's honest, feeling heart. You must be willing to grieve for the connection you never had. You must allow yourself to feel the profound anger and sadness for the non-event that has shaped your entire life. This is not about blaming your parents. It is about validating your own experience. It is about finally giving your inner child the one thing they have always been denied, the acknowledgement that their experience of being ignored was real, that their pain was legitimate, and that what didn't happen to them was a profound and devastating loss. The second step is the conscious and deliberate journey of coming home to yourself. You have spent your entire life as an expert on solving problems in the external world. You must now become an expert on your own inner world. This is the work of turning your exquisitely competent attention inward. You must start asking yourself 100 times a day the question you have never dared to ask. What am I feeling right now? What do I need right now? At first, the answer will be a terrifying silence. You are a stranger in your own house. but you must keep asking. You must learn to sit with your own feelings, to honor your own needs, to treat your own inner world as a sacred and important territory. This is the process of building an internal mirror, of learning to give yourself the validation that you never received from the outside. Finally, and most terrifyingly, you must begin to practice small, courageous acts of asking. You must find at least one safe and trustworthy person in your life, and you must begin to risk revealing a need to them. This does not mean a dramatic and tearful confession. It means starting small. It means asking a friend to listen while you talk about a problem without offering solutions. It means asking your partner for a hug. It means asking a colleague for their help on a small part of a project. It means risking the possibility that you will be met, once again, with the void. And it means discovering in the miraculous and healing moments when you are not met with the void, when you are met with understanding, with compassion, with a loving and competent helping hand, that the world is not as dangerous as you thought, that you are not, in fact, alone, and that to be a human being in all your messy, beautiful, and needy glory is a safe and wonderful thing to be. The emergence of the true strength, the power of interdependence. What is the result of this difficult, sacred work? What happens when the pseudo-adult finally excavates, embraces, and integrates their inner child? They do not become a weak, helpless, and dependent person. On the contrary, they become truly strong for the first time in their lives. True strength is not the ability to never need anyone. That is not strength. It is a trauma response. True strength is the ability to be vulnerable, the wisdom to know when you need help, and the courage to ask for it. True strength is not the rigid, brittle fortress of the isolated ego. It is the flexible, resilient, and life-giving dance of interdependence. The competence that was once a fear-based survival strategy becomes a genuine and chosen gift. The sense of responsibility that was once a crushing global burden becomes a discerning, focused capacity to care for what is truly theirs to care for. The immense energy that was once consumed with managing and suppressing their inner world is liberated for the purpose of genuine creativity, joy, and profound connection. They have not become weak. They have become whole. And in that wholeness they have found a form of strength, a form of peace, and a form of freedom that the old, self-reliant self, in its lonely and terrified fortress, could never have possibly imagined. The rock has revealed itself to be a human being. And that is a far more powerful, far more beautiful, and far more courageous thing to be if you recognize this fortress within yourself. Know this, the child you abandoned in the basement of your psyche is still waiting for you. They have not given up hope. They are waiting for you to put down the weight of the world, to turn around, to walk down the stairs, and to finally, and with great courage, ask for the one thing you have always needed, to be held.